Maybe I've got it right finally. All right, and I'm going to start the webinar now. Okay, once you click start, attendees can join. Great.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Got attendees filing in. Great to see people joining us. Thank you for taking the time. And some well-known names that we have, that people that join us quite regularly. Brooke and Claudia, definitely people that are regular listeners and visitors to the Rounded website. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you filing in. Please do say hello in chat. Let us know where you're dialing in from today. We'd love to know whereabouts in the country all our audiences are from. So we're going to get straight into it. We are broadcasting as well on YouTube Live, probably to hundreds of people. We've got Katrina from Nam. We've got Lou from the sunny coast. We've got a couple of people from Melbourne. Wow, from everywhere. But excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us today. As hopefully you people that know me, my name is Oliver Garside. I am the co-founder, or one of them, of Rounded. And we thank you for joining us to our webinar series that we're calling Making It Work. And I think that this is probably the fifth one that we've done since we have reprised our webinar series. So grateful to have you all with us today. We are recording. For anybody that isn't able to join us, we will be sending the recording out. We are also taking audience questions today at some point. So please do, whether you're on the YouTube stream or whether you're inside the Zoom room, please do feel free to put questions to our guests. We'll get to them at the most appropriate time. So today on Making It Work, we are going to be looking at what it really takes to run a successful business in 2025. Each of our sessions features industry pros, whether they be creatives or tradies or from whatever walk of life, who will share their experiences with being self-employed and what it takes to build a thriving business. We'll look at strategies, pivots, mind shifts, mindset, and try and uncover the secrets of real success for solo business owners today. Now, today, we are going to be looking at what it takes to stand out. Today's environment, I'm sure we all know, is very, very noisy. Attention is the economy that we're trading with when it comes to marketing. And it seems everybody is fighting for attention. Everybody's making a lot of noise. And I think as well, personally, I feel like people are getting weary of all the shouting and all the noise. So if we're not shouting louder than everybody else, how are we going to stand out? How are we going to get cut through clarity, communication, and genuine connection with the audiences that we're seeking to engage with? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And our guest is Jen Donovan. Jen is a well-known marketing strategist, speaker, mentor, author, conference organizer, and powerhouse behind social media and marketing Australia. She's built a number of different businesses and communities. For instance, a community called Buy from the Bush that has over 350,000 members that focuses on regional Australia, which is one of Jen's great passions. She's started Spend With Us, which is Australia's #1 marketplace for online rural and regional small businesses. The Small Business Made Simple podcast, which was, or is, I think was, maybe will be again, one of the top 1% most listened to podcasts worldwide. And on top of that, she's also recently ran the Sold Out Social Media and Marketing Conference in Melbourne. So I would like to welcome Jen Donovan. I need to take a breath. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks, Ollie. It's really uncomfortable having your own bio read to you, I can tell you. But
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. I'm excited to chat today.
Awesome. Well, we're very grateful to have you on as a guest today, and thank you for taking the time to share with us. So let's unpack what you're actually doing now in your own business, and what you think your clients should be doing that can really move the needle. So, but before we do that, I'd love a little bit of context because your bio concentrates on where you are now, but obviously that's the cumulative position of a long journey. So if we go back to the beginning, sort of what led you to start your own business?
Yeah, Ollie, I started off in law. So I did law for about 15, 16 years or so. And as my story goes, my best friend and I had had enough of our what we termed corporate jobs, and we decided to buy a business. We were like, let's look through the local newspaper. We come from a regional area on the border of New South and Victoria. Like, let's buy a business. Yeah. And so I think somehow after two bottles of wine, before I knew it, I was at a bank, I was signing loans, I was buying a business, and I'm not really quite sure how I got there. There's a few things in my life. There's a bit of a pattern where I think I black out, I make a decision, and all of a sudden the decision is done. So my best friend and I bought a retail business during what was probably the GFC, so probably one of the worst times to buy a business. But that I wanted to just have a bit of fun, actually, work with my best friend every single day. But we were about 3 months in, and I thought, actually, this is actually not a bad business. I reckon we could probably make a go of this because we'd bought a rundown business. And that's where I found my love for marketing. Basically, that is where I found it's kind of like, okay, if you want someone to come shopping, you probably need to tell more people about it. And Facebook was starting to be quite a good anchor for business owners to be posting on. And I remember putting up a post distinctly. It's like 15% off tomorrow. And it was crazy mad. Imagine doing that now. You'd probably get one like and someone would come to you 3 weeks later and go, is it 15% off today? It's like, no, that was 3 weeks ago. Like the algorithm just works so different. And after I sold that business, my mentor that I'd had for about 5 years asked me to go into business with him, which was more in the coaching space, to which I did with him for about 2 or 3 years. And then, yeah, about 2018, I decided to go out and do it myself. So that's where I sort of started my, again, how do you stand out from a crowded marketplace? One of the things we're talking about today. And my answer was podcasting. Like, not many people were podcasting back then. I didn't like showing up on video, but I was quite confident in my knowledge and my voice. So I chose podcasting. Big regret though, Ollie. I really should have chose YouTube. Looking back, as history tells, I probably should have started a YouTube channel and become YouTube-ish rather than podcast-ish. But yeah, and so I've just been building and changing and pivoting as you have to do in a small business, especially when it's your own, over the last, what, 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
Wow. Well, hopefully we can delve into more of that as we go. But let's get straight to the nub of it, and almost, we can almost be apologetic sometimes. Even when I read your bio, you felt there was obviously a small amount of self consciousness there, and you know, a lot of sole traders, they struggle with the marketing, right? And that's not just because it's not about knowing what marketing is or how to market. It's more about, like, people just find it awkward to talk about themselves if they're a sole trader. As you said, you are the business. And a lot of it's perhaps a self-imposed barrier. Like, how did you begin to get over that? Or was it just a natural thing?
No, I have this really distinct memory of when I was in my retail business. I would belong to a mastermind program, and that particular day I was in Melbourne, and the thing we had to do was go live on Facebook at lunchtime. Sometime during lunch, we had to do that. And I remember sitting with my friend Sam over lunch going, I don't want to do it. I hate the way I look. I hate the way I sound. I don't want to show up, blah, blah, blah. And I think poor old Sam got pretty sick of me. And he turned around and he goes, Jen, you look the same and talk the same, whether you are talking to me here or online. So you just got to go and do it. And I actually cried at that, but that was kind of like a bit of an awakening. It's just like, yeah, okay. I do probably like I can listen to my own podcast because I don't think it sounds like me. Like, our voice sounds different to ourselves to what it does to the reality of the world. And we look different as well. And I'm no psychologist or very clever at that sort of stuff, but apparently the way you look at yourself in the mirror. It's actually reversed the way you see yourself in your phone camera. And so that's why we think we look so different as to what we did that morning in the mirror. But that was kind of a really big thing that just made me go, all right, if I can talk to people in public, I could probably talk to someone on the phone. And then I just used to practice and then post and never watch it again. That was probably my biggest trick, is just do it and don't watch it. Just let other people watch it, because you're going to look and sound the same to them as what you would normally. To you, you think you look different. So that was probably one of the catalyst moments of me going, all right, you just need to show up. And frankly, it starts to work. And so then for you go, rightio, if that's what's working, then maybe that's what I need to do more of.
So generally, then, if we're looking for kind of practical tips for people listening around marketing, if marketing's a challenge and perhaps something that doesn't come naturally to somebody, you mentioned one thing, which was you practiced.
Yes.
So what did practice look like?
For me, I think sometimes I have a little bit of dyslexia. So sometimes I felt like that I just needed to practice. And so I would pick up my phone and I would talk to my phone. And even if I made a mistake, I wouldn't press pause. I would just keep talking, even if I started again. But I found like that pattern interrupt of stop, delete, start again didn't work for my brain. I just needed to keep talking. And eventually I would be able to find a piece that I could edit together to make it seem like it was seamless. Or eventually I would talk so much that, I would get the script right that I wanted to talk about or something like that. But for me, it just kind of, I had to learn that again, pressing pause didn't work for me. I just had to keep talking. There was a lot of videos on my phone originally that I never saw the light of day, that were just purely practice. Okay, I want to get on. I want to say 3 things. I'd have sticky notes in front of me or something like that, and I would just try and do that. And I think what kept me going was what I said before. I could see that it was starting to work. I am the product of my business. People need to buy me, my knowledge, all of that. So, when you start to see something work, you just, I guess, start to think, okay, well, all the other stuff probably isn't worth it. I need to do this.
But you'd say perhaps it would be correct to say that the practice, the repetition, it comes from a self-discipline and making yourself kind of do that continually, but then that kind of builds a level of confidence. Would that be an accurate way to describe it?
Yeah, I guess, probably everybody who's listening to this and watches this on a replay is a lifelong learner. Like, you wouldn't have turned up to listen to this unless you were a lifelong learner. So for me, it was like, work out why it's not working. So for me, I worked out it was the pause button. Pressing pause didn't work. So I needed to say, radio, don't press pause, just start again, but keep the camera rolling. So somewhat it is working out what is your barrier and how can you get over that barrier. And sometimes the barrier is exactly what you're saying, self-imposed. Like, I still, all these years later, cringe if my sister ever watched one of my videos. Like, it's just an odd feeling, but she's not my target audience. So I just need to go, well, if she watches it and thinks her little sister's a bit bat crap crazy, then so be it. She's not the person who's ever going to buy from me. So it still is a little bit uncomfortable. But again, I guess putting yourself out there and getting that visibility, if it works, you need to do it.
Great stuff. So another challenge that we hear from sole traders is often they, again, in this attention economy and with, big brands and everybody shouting so loud, is that they can often feel like they're invisible. And even if they are being disciplined and they're posting regularly, or they're, whether that be whatever medium is relevant to their business, they don't feel like they're getting traction. And certainly from Rounded's perspective, we work in an industry with some very, very big and players with some big marketing budgets. I'm sure everybody knows who we're talking about, and it can feel like, what's even the point? But in your opinion, is it still like possible to gain traction on social media, or inbound SEO with sort of organic self-made content, or is everything kind of pay to play these days?
Look, I have to truly believe that it's still possible. I see evidence every day of clients that do marketing well with a strategy as opposed to a, I guess, spaghetti against the wall approach. And it still does work, absolutely. But I think the key was a little bit in what you said there of social media, inbound SEO, potentially that you didn't say email, but there's email. I think the idea is that if you just are building content for social media, then yeah, it's a tough gig. You've got to, what is the rule? 7, 4, 11, like, 7 hours of content, 4 different places and 11 different touch points. Like that's the catalyst of marketing. So if you are just showing up on Instagram stories and nowhere else, then your audience and your community is really small. But if you're starting to show up in other platforms, of course, where your people are, with no use showing up where they're not, I think that's the whole idea of visibility. Like, you said we're in the attention economy. I say we're in the visibility economy, which is, potato, of course. But yeah, I think the idea is that you have got to be where your audience are, show up, and making sure that you do have that spread of your marketing to a certain degree. You don't have to be everywhere, but you need to be where they are and just not one place.
It may sound like an obvious question, but just, I'm interested in that point about you've got to be where your audience is or where your audience are. How do you find that out?
Yeah. The 3 big marketing questions are who is your who, where do they hang out, and what do you want to be famous for? If you can
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
getting those questions right, then, you can start to build a really great business around you. Some of it is test and measure. Some of it is listening as well. Like, if all you are doing on social media is posting, but you are never, you don't have a reach out strategy, as I talk about my Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb strategy. If you're never on there, highlighting other businesses and cheering on other people and commenting and sharing and doing all those things that you want done, and you're just isolated in this little silo of I post and no one sees me, then it just becomes a little bit harder, of course, to get there. But I do think that yeah, it's not a pay to play place, most certainly. It can be, but even they're tough. Like, you mentioned earlier that I ran a conference. I did quite a lot of a paid strategy for that. Google, oh my God, could you make it more complicated? Please throw in another question or something I need to answer. Meta, a little bit easier, but goodness me, even to pay to play is not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, not as easy as it should be. So, I mean, in terms of perhaps people focusing on outbound, posting and posting instead of maybe engagement as well. Is that is that amongst the biggest mistakes you see in businesses that are starting out that are trying to market themselves? That they're focusing, perhaps too much on their content, maybe not other people's content, engaging with where their audience is, getting involved in conversations. Would that be a fair point to make?
Yeah, it's certainly up there. It's certainly up there. An audience is something you talk at. So I do a lot of keynote speaking. I stand on a stage and I talk at people. A community is something you're involved in. Yes, you might lead that community, but the community are also talking to each other. There's, referrals, collaborations, chatting going on. And I think that is one of the biggest keys to building a business, and has been for a couple of years, and will be in the future as well, is building that community of people around you, of potential buyers, referral partners, friends, business people who become your friends, all of that sort of thing. But you're not just talking at them. They're not your audience. Building that community is such an important part.
I think it's an interesting point, right? Because I think perhaps sometimes audience and community are misunderstood and used interchangeably, when they shouldn't. What would you describe as the main difference between, audience and community?
Yeah, probably. As I was saying, I stand on stage in front of an audience and I talk at that audience. There's not a lot of interaction coming back, except for maybe at question time, or when I hop off the stage and then, start to interact with people. A community is something that perhaps you lead, because all good communities need a leader, but it's not just about you. It's, you are leading it, you are helping other people, but they're also interacting with each other. They are also perhaps doing collaborations with one another. You are highlighting them, they are highlighting you. That's the big difference as far as I can tell in my experience.
Do you have a group of people around you that that you've built over time that you can, okay, I'm not a specialist in this, but I know that you can go over there and talk to this person, and vice versa. You've got almost a referral network as well as part of your community where you can almost be greater than the sum of your parts.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not quite sure I have any formal agreements as
Yeah.
such, but yeah, absolutely. I know, a small amount of SEO, but I have people in my world that are SEO specialists. I can, talk a little bit about Google Ads, but I have people who are Google Ads specialists, like things that I know are important, but they're not my zone of genius as such. And I think that is important to know your limits and boundaries as well. Especially as a solo operator, we wear so many hats. I always love those videos on social media, and I've even done one myself where it's kind of like meet the accountant and meet the marketer and meet the business, and it's just the same person with a different jumper on or something like that. Because that's the reality of being a solo operator, is you're wearing so many hats. But I do think that one of our superpowers is recognizing what we are an expert in and potentially looking at outsourcing some of the stuff that we're not an expert in.
I was at a conference this week actually, and one of the big topics of discussion is was that, and when to outsource, and when to kind of know, when you really have to focus on the stuff that you're good at, and perhaps where the cost of getting somebody to do the stuff that you're not good at, because ultimately the payoff is there. We might come back to that, but I wanted to perhaps develop the thread of marketing a little bit more, because again, we're talking about attention economy, or what was it that you called it? Well, I called it the attention
Visibility.
visibility, and you know. Especially if you are somebody who works in a particular niche, whether that could be a marketer, or a journalist, or a copywriter, or photographer, whatever it may be, and you work in an industry where there are lots and lots and lots of different people in that niche. They all seem to offer relatively similar services. What are some of the things that you would advise your clients on how to really isolate a value proposition and bring that to the fore? Thinking about helping somebody stand out. How can I position myself in a way that's different to the hundred other people that do the same thing that I do?
Yeah. And like you're asking the right person, right? There is a marketer for every street of every corner in Australia. Like, give me
Correct.
a
Yeah.
more saturated industry, possibly accommodation people or something like that. But it's extremely saturated. But I suppose two, very obvious and definitely not groundbreaking thoughts are: no one does marketing like me. No one does business like you. Like, you are an individual. The way you, like, the concepts are still the same, but the way you talk about it, the way you advise people, the way you go about your business, that is can't be replicated by anybody else, no matter how closely the competitor is. And I think as business owners, we really underestimate what we know that other people would like to know. These things that come just naturally to us because that's our skill set. When you are in a conversation with someone and someone looks at you with that look of, oh my God, no one has ever said that before or explained that before, or how do you know that? They are the little alarm bells that should be going off in your head going, oh, I thought everyone knew that. Like, okay, that's a piece of content like that, the way I said it or explained it, that's different to everybody else that they've probably talked to like that. So I think it is, yeah, it's fair to say that, you are an individual. No one does business like you. And you're probably seriously underestimating what you know that other people would like to know.
Are there any exercises or strategies that you use that help your clients kind of uncover and isolate what that might be?
Ollie, you know what happens most of the time? I get them talking, and then we're on a call like this, and all of a sudden they're talking away, and I'm like, that is gold. And they just look at you and they're like, really? I'm like, absolutely. I'm going to send you this recording, and you're going to throw that into Chat GPT, and you're going to say, radio, give me a script about this, or, help me make a social media post about this, or, not even throw it into Chat GPT if you don't like AI. But I find as soon as you get someone talking about their expert subject, the information just oozes out of them, and they have literally no idea that you are listening with fascination, or that you are like, oh my goodness, I've never heard that before. I was talking to someone the other day, and they're a beautician, and I was like, no one has ever said that to me before. And they're like, really? Like, that's common knowledge. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, yeah. So yeah, and I've often said to people, to clients, get someone to talk to you. Like, just hop on a Zoom call, get someone to ask you questions and record it, because, them asking you questions is just going to bring out your knowledge without you really even noticing.
Awesome. So I don't think we've ever done one of these webinars without ChatGPT being mentioned or coming up. So we might as well just get through this question really quickly right now, just so that we've ticked the AI box. Just very quickly, without diving into too much detail, like talk about you're using AI in your business, the things that you're using it for, and the impact that it's, what's it allowing you to do that you couldn't do before?
Yeah, probably two big things that come to mind is it has made me really 1,000% better with SEO, and my SEO is probably still not great, but to be able to cut and paste an entire page of my website into ChatGPT, explain who my target audience is, and ask it to give me the keywords, the meta description, and the title. And sometimes even the schema, which is your Q&A type of piece that belongs a bit further down your website, has just been life-changing. I remember doing it when I set up the page for my social media marketing conference. Within a day, if you put in, marketing conference Melbourne, it came up in Google's AI overview up the top. It was just like, I could never have done that previously. So that, and my blogs and things like that, it has changed my SEO, I guess, appearance in Google, most certainly. And the other way I think it's really changed for me is I've written a couple of GPTs. So I'm not quite sure whether you can do it through all of them, but the paid chat GPT, you can make your own GPTs, which is kind of making your own little program. And so now I've got one that will audit people's social Instagram bio, and will also audit who their customer and their hero customer is, and give them a 30-day marketing plan based on their business. And I can do that in probably 3 minutes. So that's a really good value offering to my clients, to be able to do that for them, that I could normally have offered without charging them significantly more.
Awesome. And then just as important, like where are you wary of using ChatGPT or AI, and where are, where would you know I need to rely on my own expertise and abilities here, and not just subcontract that bit out to ChatGPT?
Probably, so I use ChatGPT, other than those two reasons, a lot for conversations. It is like my second brain. I have lots of conversations, but if I'm creating content, that's me. Like, I don't really use it. I might use it to help find spelling mistakes, because my poor English teacher didn't do so well, through my schooling, and I'm not so good with my spelling or my grammar. The spell check often picks up spelling, but sometimes it lets me down in grammar. Or yeah, so most content I would think has originally come from me. But again, it's a great place to repurpose. You've got a podcast, you've got a script, how else can you repurpose that piece of content into 11 different ways to help you? So I'm a little bit wary of it. Yeah, same. So it's obvious. I don't want to bag it because it might be listening. So I'm very conscious of it
Yeah.
listening to me, but I don't like the idea that it's stealing somebody else's ideas, because that's what it's doing. Like, it's just learning, like you are getting something out of a machine that knows nothing unless someone has inputted that at somewhere along the way, which is no different to Google. But of course, we are using that content and potentially putting our name to that content. So I'm very aware that what I put in could be repurposed into somebody else's thoughts, and vice versa. So I love it, but I have a bit of it's like Meta. I have a difficult relationship with it. I like what it can do, but I'm not really sure about liking how it's created.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And there's a whole different separate webcast topic around the ethical and environmental
Yeah,
issues around AI, but we won't go down that
absolutely.
little rabbit hole today.
Yeah. But
I'd like to
one
go.
classic
Oh, sorry, you
example,
go ahead.
sorry, one classic example is I wrote a book. I've never put my book into ChatGPT to
Yeah,
repurpose
okay.
content. That's a step too far for me. So that's my line in the sand. So that's an example of, my gratitude, but also mistrust.
Yeah, well, look, I think that's what we're hearing more and more, that if there's anything, anything that you don't want to
Mm,
be repurposed, used, assimilated by whatever AI program is out there, yeah, to keep it offline, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So I'd like to go back to the whole concept of, audience versus community. And obviously you've given us your definition and a few examples of what's different. You've built communities like Buy From a Bush Business, along with your like-minded business owners Facebook group and a few others online. Um, what are some of the different approaches that you've taken, like in terms of building an audience versus building a community? Like, what are the sort of tactical approaches that you use to do those different things? How do they differ?
Yeah, I suppose I'm not quite sure I ever set out to build an audience. I think I've always set out to build a community as such. And I think one of the biggest things, one of the biggest paybacks I found with having a community rather than an audience was when, COVID hit basically. And, I was probably like a lot of people listening and maybe yourselves. I had 2020 was looking like a brilliant year. I had so many speaking gigs and clients, and overnight, each one of them fell off. And I basically had a business that was like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? So the idea, like the thing I found having a community was I went out to the community. What do you need? Like, here's a survey, fill out the survey for me. What's holding you back in business, etc. So I got to pivot quite quickly and successfully based on the fact that I had a community that was willing to open up and tell me, what they needed or what they thought they needed. And then, maybe 6 months later, do the same thing. So I find that's one of the pluses of having a community rather than an audience, is because you've built that trust, you've built that. Oh, it could be a pseudo friendship. Like they may never have met you before, but they feel like they know, like, and trust you. And therefore, it helps you with your business. It helps you understand, what your strategy should be if you want those people to, or people similar to them to buy from you. So you don't build a community necessarily to sell to consistently, but certainly, you would like them to buy or refer or at least, help you build your business to be successful, because they're your audience at the end of the day, the type of audience that you want to sell to. So, yeah, I'm not sure whether that answers your question or not,
Oh,
but
I think it does.
yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
But yeah, that was one of the pluses that I find with, having a community is as a small business owner. And that's what we've got over, big giant businesses, is we can change at the drop of a hat. They can't. I think
Yeah,
that was really evident during the pandemic.
yeah, I agree. I agree. So just a quick aside to the audience, guys. We are taking questions. If you have any questions for Jen, please do put them in the chat, and we will get to them. Love to answer any of your questions around marketing for your own business, or questions about specific things that you might want Jen's insight on. So back to community, like, you said, obviously, I think one of the most important things was that, you don't build a community necessarily to try and sell to them. And in fact, I think if you do try that, it's obviously counterproductive, because, people just don't put up with being sold to overtly too much, in a community setting. So, but apart from that, are there any other sort of major mistakes that you kind of notice with business owners trying to build communities, or anything that you see with the clients that you work with specifically?
Look, I suppose it has to have a strategy behind it. Like I said, a good community has a good leader. So you need to have your finger on that pulse as the leader. Otherwise, someone else will come along and lead that community for you. So a lot of people perhaps, we are solo operators. We have a billion hats to wear. And, being in charge of a community is yet another thing that I need to make sure that I'm doing every week or every day or every month, whatever that sort of looks like. So sometimes building it and just letting it sit there and not really captaining that, or not really being the leader in that, is another sort of, I guess, trap that you can find. I have a very I'm a bit harsh potentially in my community. If someone's not acting the way I think, or they're overselling, or perhaps that there's some comments that I don't like, they're gone. Like, there's plenty of communities for those people. My community isn't one of them. I certainly found that in Buy from a Bush business. It started from zero. I saw a real change at about 110,000. There was kind of like, it was very much a rural, happy, great place to hang out. And then about 110,000, I found that we started to attract some people that perhaps didn't agree with some of the things that were going on, or someone would make a piece of art and they would say, that's horrendous. Why would anyone buy that? Out you go, like no second chances, type of thing. So I think that's the other thing, that perhaps people don't keep their community to be a safe space, and therefore, people tend to drift away because they no longer feel safe within your community.
And I think most of us have had some kind of exposure to online community these days, whether it be through a Facebook group, or a book group, or whatever it may be. And I think we've also all had experiences of groups where you can go into one group and it's just tumbleweeds, right? And somebody posts and there might be a like, but there's just no real sort of kind of engagement there. And you go to other groups where there's a thriving community of people who are positively trying to help each other and getting involved in respectful debate, or whatever the community may be
Mm.
about. So from your perspective, what sort of, whether it's habitual habits or tactics, or approaches over the years, have you developed to kind of keep engagement going, and even, I guess, drive self-sustaining engagement, because you don't want to be always the one who's initiating it? Like, how do you get that kind of the momentum there to allow people the space to feel comfortable in engaging in the environment that you've created?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, it's certainly in an online community case, it is tough because, the person who belongs to your community probably belongs to 10, 50, 100 others as well. For me, it is about the human. Like, I'm all about human to human marketing. And so therefore it's about the human as well. So not everything in my community is about business. It's also about, what movies are you watching, or, what are your goals, or, it's kind of starting those conversations, or, I watched this terrible thing on the weekend. Has anyone else watched it? I really need to talk about it. And, like putting yourself out there. You're a human, that human to human marketing. I guess it's a way of growing people to get to know, like, and trust you, or know, like, and love you, type of thing. But yes, for me, it is about, it can't just all be about business. It is a business led community because I am in business, but it's also about the humans that are behind the businesses and listening to them. I think scheduling could be your, little gem as well. Like, having particular questions that you might schedule in once a month, or once a week, or something like that, to keep the conversations going. But I find that, you might have a community of 500 or 5,000 or whatever, but there's like maybe 5 or 10 people that keep it going. And then when people see them talking, they're more likely to, come out and make conversation as well. So you kind of need these hero people within your community as well, because they keep the conversation going and certainly show that, this isn't the Jen show in my particular case. This is a community of like-minded business owners. So yeah,
Yeah.
you do need those couple of top fans almost.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so moving on, You mentioned before, and I was fortunate enough to be able to attend at least a small portion of it. Earlier this year, you decided to kind of step out of your comfort zone again, and arrange your own marketing conference. And I can see almost the pain in your eyes when you think about all of the work that went involved in that. But I turned up to a great venue in Docklands, and there would have been 100 plus people in the room, great engaging speakers, everything that you want from a conference. But even though there still seems to be that post-COVID sort of yearning for face-to-face and people getting offline, I think that there's been a bit of a resurgence in conferences. What was it that sort of motivated you to sort of take on such a big task and do something like that?
Ollie, I wish someone had have stopped me and said, no, this is not what you do. You can't do this type of thing. That would have been, I probably, I don't know. I live my life in a ready, fire, aim position. So it's just like, get ready, fire, and let's just work it out as we go along. That is my entire business model, ready, fire, aim. So I think that came into that. But, as I was speaking, off air before we started, I have a goal. Part of that goal was so I have a business called Social Media and Marketing Australia, and then I have Jen Donovan. They're becoming two separate brands. And so I need something for social media and marketing to have, and perhaps a saleable asset, because with most solo people, or maybe not, maybe just service-based solo people, I am the product. So the business lives and dies with me. I was just talking to someone the other day. I was like, oh, I've sectioned out 6 weeks over Christmas that I'm not going to work. And they're like, oh my gosh, 6 weeks off. That's amazing. I'm like, yeah, I don't get paid. Like, Jen stops working, money stops coming in type of thing. So it's not as great as it sounds. So I came up with the concept of a conference. That's the asset that Social Media and Marketing Australia could own, is a social media and marketing conference. So that's where it came from. I can tell you hand on heart, Ollie, I have never sold anything so hard in 10 years of business. It was a slog, and it taught me, like, I thought I knew marketing, and I was looking for new strategies all the time to try and just work out how I can actually get more people. And still, I see people now, like I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, oh, I saw the videos after, but I never saw it. I'm like, you're going to make me cry. Like, how could you not have seen it? I thought it was everywhere. And I think that's the lesson sometimes in marketing as well, is we think that we are overselling something and annoying people, but the reality is it's just starting to get traction and just starting to show up in people's feeds. So,
What
um,
was your most successful channel for tickets? I know you said you tried some paid, and you obviously did a lot of socials and everything else. Like, where did your audience come from in the end?
well, you're not going to like the answer. The answer is my community, like the
Yeah,
community I've been
I love
building over
that.
the last 10 years. And not only maybe they didn't buy a ticket, but they shared the post because they know, like, and trust Jen, and they know it's going to be a good event. And, when I sat down and did the statistics, like, I'm a bit of a data person, sit down, do the spreadsheet, do the data. I was like, radio, 1% of my community, 1% of my email list, 3 to 4 people from each speaker, bang, I've got 200, 160 people in the room, easy. It was not that easy. And I was really quite shocked at just, and I'm not sure. I think it's more the buying cycle rather than the marketing as well. Like, people see it, oh yeah, I'll go to that, but they never actually, there wasn't the urgency to buy the ticket. And these are all the little lessons that I'm learning. I had 5 tickets sold on the morning of, and I'd already, said it was sold out type of thing. But clearly, in my rush, I left the ticket system working, which potentially I shouldn't have. But yeah, it was lucky that, some people got sick and didn't come, or children or whatever. But yeah, it's yeah, big
But I
sales.
mean, I just think that's such a great example of the power of the community and why you would invest in it. If
Mm.
if that's, regardless of all of the other efforts that you put into marketing in so many different channels, if you're saying that most of your tickets came from your community that you had, I think that's testimony to the advantage of that and how well you've done.
Or
What,
people in my community, their friends bought it. So I
of
didn't know
course, yeah.
everyone in the room, but I had like that first or second connection with everybody in the room.
So very quickly, so we're going to get into some quick fire questions now, as we begin to draw this to a close, and then there are a couple of questions I think in the chat. So again, please guys, if you have any questions for Jen, please do put them in, and we are going to go to Q&A after these questions. So a couple of rapid fire questions to finish up, Jen. The best thing about running a conference?
Community.
Building the community. The worst thing about running a conference?
Community. No, that's not true. The after effect. I literally had no idea how high I was to fall from. Like I had literally had no idea how much energy I was putting in. And like I had a conference the next week in Sydney, and that almost like did me in trying to get to Sydney, trying to get my headspace back. I had no idea how exhausting it would be afterwards.
Are you going to do it again?
Yes,
Right, right.
because
Well,
I'm mad.
everybody in the audience, remember this, that next year, Jen will be doing another marketing conference. One marketing myth you'd like to bust forever?
That email doesn't work.
Email doesn't work. You'd like to bust that. You think that
Yes,
email's still a great channel?
great channel. One of the
Why is
best.
email a great channel?
Because you can have really quality conversations and segment your list. And I think the number one reasons why you should be on socials is to get them off into an
What's your
email list.
favorite marketing tool that you use every week?
Or I have to say ChatGPT. I don't
Okay,
want to say that, but yes, ChatGPT.
fair enough. If you had 1 hour a week to market your business, how would you spend it?
Live, live on a social platform.
Yeah, right. Which, I mean, obviously unique to your business, but which platform would you choose to spend that hour live on?
At this point, with where I want to go in 2026, I'd spend it on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, right? Okay. And the best advice you have ever received as a business owner?
Oh, wow, what a big one that is. Ready, fire, aim. Nobody, the world does not need another business owner aiming to do something. It needs action takers. So get ready, do it, and just work it out as you go along.
Great. Um, what for anybody watching, if there was a book or a website or a blog that contains great business or marketing advice outside of yours, of course, uh, what would you recommend if somebody's looking to begin to improve their approach to marketing?
Um, I subscribe to a newsletter list called Ben's Bites, and it's an AI. This is what's new. This is the new toy, basically, that's come along, the new app, etc. I quite enjoy that on a Friday afternoon. I sit down, I read that, I have a bit of a play. Um, Andrew Griffiths, who is a friend of mine, but an amazing marketer as well. He wrote the foreword to my book, but he has a book called Someone Has to Be the Most Expensive. Why Not Make It You? I like that idea. I liked the lessons in that book. Not, I don't know if I want to be the most expensive, but I know potentially what it would take now if I was going to be the most expensive. I just think there's some great business lessons in that book.
Amazing. And guys, we'll make a note of that, Sarah, if you can, and we'll send some links out when we send you out the recording and when we upload this online. So if there's any of you that want to follow up and delve into that content that Jen's just recommended, we'll make sure you're able to find that. Um, that's awesome. So we're going to go to questions. I think we have one from Katrina in the chat, and she's, of course, we've had this wide-ranging conversation. As ever, it always comes back down to AI and ChatGPT. So she said, "Would you mind explaining more about using SEO into ChatGPT when you make your content? What are the key points that you cover, whether it's a blog or a post? Just a little bit more explaining on how you use it." To create content would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So say for instance, I have my front page of my website which has no SEO done on it. I will literally I don't know whether people will believe I'm good at my job after this. I literally control A and then chat GPT control C. So cut and paste it into chat GPT. And I will say something like, can you do the SEO for this website page? The target audience is XYZ. Can you use 2025 best practice SEO? See what it comes up with. And so then it tends to, sometimes it might forget to give me, the schema. So I'll say, can you give me an opening paragraph, or can you give me the schema as a Q&A? And it will, and schema, I don't know much about SEO. So if anyone is listening and they're kind of like, that's not 100% right, Jen, I apologize. But to my knowledge, when you go and Google something and you get those things a little bit far down, it says people also ask, that tends to be where your schema could possibly pop up because people have asked that question and you have the answer for that question within your blog or within your website or something like that. That is my understanding of schema simplicitly. So that's all I do. And yeah, I don't always love it. But it's a start. It comes up with potentially keywords that I wouldn't have thought of, and all of that. So I've built and the same with the blog. I've written the blog. Now I just want the SEO for the blog. If I had an old blog, I might ask it to rewrite it using SEO best practice for 2025. And it might then thread some keywords in it that weren't in it when I wrote it 5 years ago or something. But for new content or content I've written, that's how I use it.
And have you got better? This is my own question. Have you got better at using ChatGPT over time? Like, have you got, better at extracting, knowing what questions to ask, knowing what prompts to use? Uh,
Mm. Yeah, I think I have, because, I watch other people, I listen to other people, and sometimes it doesn't give me the answer I want. So it's kind of like I have to ask that question a different way. ChatGPT, it gives you what a quality question gets quality answer. That's, my biggest piece of advice. If you're not getting
yeah,
the answer that you want, you're not putting a quality question in.
yeah. Well, yeah. It will only answer the question that you ask. So if the question isn't right,
Yeah.
the answer won't be right either. Absolutely. We have another question from Karen who asks, "Can you please explain the 7-4-11 rule again, please?"
Yeah, so 7 4 11. I think I didn't even know who wrote this. I'm pretty sure someone in the 1920s wrote this type of marketing. So it's 7 hours of content, 4 different places, and 11 different touch points. So that's the 7 4 11.
But
Um, so
what does that mean?
so you should have, like, if you have, and if you are listening and you are a retailer, this is the sales process can be a lot quicker for you. It's kind of like, here's a candle, I want a candle, bang, I don't even care who you are. I like the look of that candle. I want to buy that candle. But for people selling $1,000 programs or potentially service-based businesses, it's saying the rule is basically saying there should be 7 hours of content for me to watch to get to know, like, and trust you and understand that you're the person for me. You should be showing up in 4 different places so that I'm, wherever I am, and researching the solution to my problem, you're starting to pop up. So you're not just on Instagram, and you're not just on Facebook, but you're in 4 different places. So often that is, email, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Google Business Profile, which used to be called Google My Business. Like, there's fairly, most people are at least in 4 places that.
But
And then there's
that of course is knowing where your audience is, right? Going back to the point that we were making before, that those 4 places have to be where your audience is, right? So you need to know.
Yes. Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Good point to remind. Yes, thank you. And then there should be 11 different touch points. So, there's maybe an article to read, there might be a video to watch, there's, some social media posts, so there's just different touch points. So, like, for instance, I have a course that I have, and if you bought that course, you get the opportunity to either watch the video, download the audio, or read the transcript, because I don't know how you learn. So depending on how you learn is to how you might actually like to go through that course. And it's the same with customers and potential buyers. We don't know whether they like to watch videos or whether they'd rather read a post or whether they'd like to listen to you on a podcast to learn a little bit more about you. So they're the different That's what you need with the different touch points. If all you've got is posts, then you're not really using your touch points to your advantage, because people might like to watch a video rather than that. And if you're only doing video, vice versa.
Awesome. Thank you. So, guys, any chance for final chance now for questions? And just whilst we give people an opportunity to quickly type if they want to, I'm going to ask what could be the final question if we don't get any more, and that is where do you see marketing and engagement and all of that going next year? Because things are changing so quickly. Like, what's happening next?
I've actually just starting to design a webinar that I'm doing in a couple of weeks, and I've said that next year's going to be a ripper, and I'm just putting it out there to the world. Like, I'm sick of saying, this year was a doozy or this year was hard, so I'm like, next year's going to be a ripper. So that is my premise. But I think a lot of marketing that you've found hard could get easier next year if you're using the right strategies. If you are leaning into I guess your knowledge and things like that. Maybe it is a visibility economy. So it's kind of like, how are you being more visible? I think that marketing will get easier with the likes of AI, but you're still going to have to come back to those three cores. Who is your who? Where do they hang out? And what do you want to be famous for? If your people are in a room of potential clients, how do you want them to explain what it is that you do to be able to refer business to you? And I think potentially AI is helping us get better at that, because we can have this conversation. It's just like, this is what I do. Can you help explain what it is in customer centric language? Or, can you help write me a bio? And it can go out there and find lots of information about you. So I think it's going to get better. I think it's definitely not going to get easier, but maybe simpler.
Awesome. And just when we thought we were done, we've got another question from Katrina again. So thank you, Katrina, for sending that in. She says she has a retail shop. I have just started using ChatGPT to write my product explanations. It wants to use bold text on words which I assume are the SEO keywords. Should I leave these bold or change them or to make it look like a more natural discourse to my wording? I think that's more
Um,
almost an aesthetic question, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think that, first of all, if you're getting it to write your product explanations, make sure you're doing benefits and features. So, not just the features of the product, but the benefits, because the benefits of what I'm looking for as a consumer. Yeah, and that's what can help stand out in a marketplace, 100%. I'm not sure whether they are the SEO words, but if you think about how people read and how quickly and fast we think we're too busy to read a whole thing, bolding and underline and capitalization are great things to use for eye-catching words that you want people. So if they're just skimming a page, that's what they see first, and if they're interested enough, they read the whole paragraph. So regardless of whether they're SEO words, if they are something that you think should be eye-catching to a skimmer, someone skimming over your product description, then I would leave them in, and I like the idea of them.
Awesome. So Katrina, just as an aside, one of the first of one of these webinars that we did was with an AI specialist called Rashida Tayabali. So you can find that on our YouTube channel, and she's a specialist in marketing and the use of ChatGPT and other AI tools for writing copy. So have a look at that. And Katrina, if you want an intro to Rashida or anybody else, of course, that we've done these webinars with, just let us know and we'll be happy to put you in touch. So on that
Yeah.
note, Jen, I'd
And
like to thank you. Sorry, no, you got something else to say before we wrap
oh,
up?
sorry. I was going to say to Katrina, maybe look at writing your own GPT so that you don't have to keep coding and asking this in, but you can set up your own GPT and you just keep putting, minimal information, it knows exactly what it is that you want every single time. So maybe that's something to talk to Rashida about, is how you can
Yeah,
build
so,
one of those.
sometimes they're called agents as well, right? So
Yes,
you can set
yes.
up a
Thank you.
specific agent for something, and that is
Mm.
absolutely what Rashida does. And in fact, I got Rashida to come and do a training session for my team internally, so that we could create some agents and try and streamline some of the things that we do inside
Perfect.
around it as well. So if if you want an intro to Rashida, let us know. But again, I think we're coming to a close. Jen, thank you. I know that we could tell obviously how busy, how many things you've got going on. So the fact that you've spent some time with us today, we're very, very grateful for. Guys, this is already up on YouTube Live. If you want to see this again, we will send out a recording probably early next week once we've had the chance to deal with that. But to everybody, thank you for taking the time again. Happy Friday. Jen, thank you. Best of luck with 2026. And, we'd love to, let us know when your conference is ready to go. And we'll help you as part of your community by sharing it as far and wide as we can.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Ollie. Thanks for having me. And thanks for the great questions. You've made me think for sure. It's been brilliant.
It's great. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.